All right, well, good afternoon, high schoolers. It's great to be back, as always. I'm going to start off by writing something on the board. Nice and big and bold. A little bit better than last time. Now that I've started with writing something, I'm going to restart with a question. Have you ever spent a lot of time working on something and then you realize you were working on the wrong thing and that you just wasted all that time? So I was trying to think of a good example of this for my life. This is the best I could come up with. So about a year and a half ago, I was at this Christian discipleship school in Colorado, and it was about the same size as GNU, so like 70, 80 people. And it's this 5-week thing, really close relationships. Like you just live with people like in the same dorms and just do life with them and intense spiritual growth with them. And then the 5 weeks is up, and now like people came from New Zealand, people came from China, people came from all across the United States, and you just have to say goodbye. And so someone came up with this idea, hey, let's get everybody's number and make this massive group chat of like 80 people. And I don't know if you've been in a group chat with like more than 30 people in it, but a lot of times I wonder if they're good ideas. Some people give a nice life update every month or so, but some people just react to every single thing, to just message. So one day I'm in the car with my mom, and I'm looking at this group chat with like 80 people in it, and I'm thinking, there's like a select few, like 5 people that are just always on it, and like everyone else is quiet. You know what? I'm gonna compile a list of statistics and send it to this entire chat for everyone to see of who gives the most messages. Like this person, this person, this person, this person. Send it out to everyone. They'll see I'll look smart because I took statistics. They'll look embarrassed because they've been talking way too much, and that'll fix the problem. And then this group chat won't be exploding all the time. So I start scrolling through this chat and just recording the names of people who've given messages. Like, okay, Juan gave a message there, Lenita, okay, Juan, Lenita, like writing all the names down. And I had done this for like 15, 20 minutes. I'm just going through. And then at a certain point I realized, like, why am I doing this? What's my goal here? By the way, I didn't start a timer. I'll just start a timer.
3 minutes.
I realized I'm doing this because I want to like get back at them. I want to make a statement. If I really wanted this group chat to change, do I need to send this message to everybody and take stats from the last 1,000 messages? Or would it be more effective to just approach someone directly and say, hey, not with an audience of 79 people, but just directly say like, hey, Eli, like, you've been giving a message like every 10 minutes in this chat. 79 other people are getting a notification every time you do that. Could you please dial that back? That would have been a lot more wise than the method that I was choosing. And so thankfully I stopped. I did not complete the project, but I just wasted a good chunk of time. Now people have examples of wasting more time or wasting less time, but I realized I was working towards the wrong thing. Do you want to do things a certain way for a long time, even longer than 20 minutes, and then realize that you're confused? Do you want to spend your whole life getting the most money in whatever way you can, then get to the end and realize it's worthless? Then get to the end and realize it's worthless. So before I jump into the text, I'll start off with my main statement. Let God control your use of money. Let God control your use of money. Nice and rhythmic. Kind of flows home. And then breaking that point down into 3 more specific points. Number 1, be strategic with earthly finances. using them towards heavenly reward. Don't drop your markers on the floor in the middle of the message. Be strategic. Number 2 is be faithful with what you are entrusted, so that you will be given true riches. And then number 3 is be owned by God, not by money. And we'll come back to these later, so you don't have to get them all down now. All right, let's jump into the passage. So Luke 16. Give you a moment to turn there if you'd like.
Where are we going?
Luke 16, 1 to 13. Wait for the rustling of pages to die down. I rustle my own pages later. All right, Luke 16. I'll just go through the whole thing and make comments later. He also said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, or you can no longer be manager.' And the manager said to himself, 'What shall I do, since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do, so that when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses.' So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He said, 100 measures of oil.' He said to him, 'Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, 'And how much do you owe?' He said, 100 measures of wheat.' He said to him, 'Take your bill and write 80. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." So there's just a complete overview of the section. So this parable is rather confusing. Even the commentaries admit, like, this is perplexing, like, we don't know. So I chose a tough one, but that doesn't mean that this time won't be fruitful. I'll start off with just kind of some easier remarks, some kind of numbers type stuff. So talking about measurements, in verse 6, 100 measures of oil. So the word measures, that's actually the word baths, which is a measurement of about 8 to 9 gallons. So this comes out to, this guy owns 875 gallons of oil, roughly, give or take. And he was discounted about 440 gallons of oil. It's a big discount. The wheat guy, the measurement there is a core. And when you do the math, that comes out to, he owed about 66,000 pounds of wheat. And so he was discounted 25% of that. He was discounted about 13,000 pounds of wheat. Big discount. When you do the math and add these discounts together, that equates to about 1.7 years of wages that he just said, no, it's good, you don't have to pay. 1.7 years of wages. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but if someone came to me and said, yeah, I just cost your business 1.7 years of wages. And keep in mind, this, like it says he took all the debtors one by one. This only shows us 2. So maybe there were only 2, but it seems to imply that there were more than 2. So like, imagine, like it's probably a lot bigger than just 1.7 years of wages. So if I was the rich guy, I'd probably be, like, I don't think angry is even the right word. I would just be confused beyond anger. So question for you guys, and you can feel free to shout it out, talk it up, whatever. It says in verse 8, the master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. So why do you think the master praised this guy? Why wasn't he super angry? What are your thoughts? Just shout it out.
He's a
popcorn.
lunatic.
He's a lunatic. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, it seems like, we're probably gonna go in and out of answering as high schoolers and as,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
it seems like it goes in and out of, some perverse, kind of, good job kind of saving your own bacon here,
Yeah.
kind of that. And then another thing I remember reading one time, and maybe, and if, maybe you found it as well, that it wasn't an uncommon thing that the person's payment for the job they did was somehow tied into the amounts owed. So he was really taking back maybe amounts that were, though they seem like such huge percentages, but maybe it was the amounts that were gonna be his payment anyway. So that one doesn't feel like a natural reading, but.
Well, I did not realize that there were actually multiple interpretations of this. First time I read this passage, I thought it was just this guy realized he was going to be fired, but the time didn't come yet, so it was like the sitting duck period kind of. And he was like, well, I still have this authority for a little bit. I'll just give all these discounts, totally backstab my manager, and that way they'll like me. But like you said, there's another interpretation of like maybe he didn't falsify these records. Maybe he didn't unethically give discounts when it wasn't his call to make. Maybe he actually made a commission out of the stuff. Like let's say Dr. Ferber owed me 875 gallons of oil, which is a pretty likely scenario actually. And if he owed me 875 gallons of oil and Katie was like the middle person, maybe like realistically, maybe half of that was just her pay. Maybe half of that was her commission. So if Katie goes, you know what, like I know you owe 875 gallons of oil to Luke because he's the rich man who's over all this stuff. I'm actually gonna get 50% of that as a cut. You don't need to pay me, just keep that. But the 440 that you owe Luke, give that to him. I think that's possible. That's a possible reading. And you might think, okay, 50% like interest, that's crazy. For that day, it really wasn't. 25% for wheat, like that was realistic. And when you look at the fact that the master commended the manager, I actually think it's more likely, nobody's really sure, but why would he be like, oh yeah, you just cost me over 2 years of wages? Like, I don't know. Interesting to think about. Okay, so moving on to, where am I? Okay, yeah, so back in verse 8, the master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. Now a note here about the word shrewdness. I don't know why, but I thought the word shrewd meant like mischievous and clever and backstabbing and yes, strategic, but just like super selfish and sinful. But when you actually look at what this word is, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's more just like prudent or thoughtful or strategic. So I'm not really sure where I got that connotation from, but it kind of helps you read through the passage, I think. So picking up in verse 8, for the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. So let's slow down a little bit. What's this guy doing? He realizes he's about to get fired. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to find myself work. In one way or another, I'll make all these people happy so that when I'm fired, they will feel indebted to me, whether or not it's a legal debt. They'll feel indebted to me, and they'll let me stay with them. Makes sense. verse 9 is probably the most confusing verse of this entire passage. And I tell you, and this is Jesus speaking, and I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. So when I first read that, I was like, wait, so Jesus is telling me to do unrighteous stuff to bribe people so they like me? What on earth? But when you look at this term for unrighteous wealth, it's just kind of a word for like monetary resources or just currency. Like maybe it's unrighteous in the sense that typically people focus too much on money. Again, does anyone know for sure? Not sure. This is a beast of a parable. But Jesus isn't saying do unrighteous stuff. He's saying probably use this stuff that's frequently associated with worldliness, but use it for things that are actually eternally minded. So that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. So who's they? Who's receiving me? Probably they refers to the people that you're giving this wealth to. They may receive you into the eternal dwellings. When I read that, I was like, how can people receive me into, like, are human people the ones that decide whether or not I go to heaven? Like, that just seems messed up. And I think probably the best reading, John 14 actually talks about, in my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? So maybe this is saying, use your earthly money to win people's favor so that in heaven they will let you hang out with them in their houses. Like, is that a legitimate reading of this? I think maybe. But again, I'm not sure if we can. I debated just preaching on that passage from Isaiah that says like, and he told them the parable so they wouldn't understand. It's just like, God's way above us. But moving on into kind of more of the application, in verse 10, it says, one who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. This verse makes the point that it's not about how much you have, it's about how you handle what you do have. Question for you guys. Can you think of some examples of either A, someone is super faithful with what they have and then they're given a lot more, or B, someone is super unfaithful and then when they do have tons of responsibility, it just goes terribly? Can you think of any examples of that? Like people you know, or people in history, maybe yourself?
I knew an older guy that I just think he was so faithful with his money, God just kept him giving more and more and more. And like, and he was, he then gave more and more and more.
Yeah.
So it's not like he became crazy rich because he gave away some at the beginning. It's like God just kept, because he was faithful, he just kept giving more and more, and he just kept giving away more and more and more. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Barney.
I love Barney.
Great name. Barney.
And there's someone from my church I think of who is crazy wealthy, but uses it to fund Israel trips, uses it to support other people. He's given it to us for things like that, and just how like he's the most opposite of humble, unselfish. Yeah, most unselfish person. Yet he is so he is so much because he helped a lot of the productions of Apple, and so he has connections there and has like designed a lot of things that we hold in our hands. But he doesn't use that for his own glory.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, from what you were saying, there's a verse in Proverbs that says something to the likes of, if you give to the poor, you're actually lending to God, and God will repay you. That seems to be pretty clear with what's happening with Barney.
He's dead.
Okay. Moving on.
Heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, those are good examples of people who are faithful and were given more. On the flip side, an example of someone not someone, but some group of people. You've probably heard this before, but check this out. 60% of NBA players who make millions within 5 years of ending their career are broke. 60%. That was a study done by Sports Illustrated in 2009. But the numbers are still about the same today. How does that happen? When you get used to having millions of dollars in income every single year, you don't need to be faithful with it, because if you go blow it on this and that and whatever, you're just going to get another massive check for $20 million next year, and you don't have to be faithful with it. So that when they retire and they aren't getting this like rush of money every year, it just dries up because they weren't faithful in just the financial principles, simply just with their minimum wage that they made before they went to college or whatever. That still surprises me. All right, so verse 11 takes that thought from verse 10 and then applies it and says, if then you've not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, in like worldly monetary resources, who will entrust you with the true riches? And that probably refers to heavenly rewards. Verse 12, and if you have not been faithful in what is in others, who will give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. When you look at that phrase, it literally means no servant can be a slave owned by two masters, which I think helps illuminate the text a lot more, because when, like, if it's just up to you choosing who you serve, like I could go volunteer at this thing for a day, and then I'm going to say, okay, I'll volunteer here for a day. Like, you can kind of let people borrow your time, but if it's like, no, you can only be owned by one person, you cannot be owned by two masters, I think that just illustrates the point better, and it's more direct. For example, kind of a bad analogy, but I used to work construction, and I didn't have a tape measure. And so I'd always be like, hey, William, can I borrow your tape measure? And he'd like, throw it over again and measure my thing, and hey, can I have it back? Okay, oh, I need your tape measure again. Like, same thing with knives, same thing with hammers. And then one day my boss bought me a tape measure. And so now I could use my tape measure whenever I wanted. I didn't have to be like, oh, is William using my tape measure? Like, I had it on my hip at all times. And so when I need to make it cut something, I can use it. And it's not like this tape measure is being 100% owned by two separate things. It just simply does not work. It's like, I love how direct and simple this statement is. You cannot serve God and money. Very simple. God won't have the compromise of you just kind of being borrowed by money. And then, like, yeah, I kind of serve God today, I'll like serve God tomorrow. And then it reminds me of Revelation chapter 3, where he talks about being cold or hot. He says, would that you were either cold or hot, so because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing, not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you may be rich, and white garments, notice these like references to eternal things, white garments so that you may clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness may not be seen, and salve to anoint your eyes so that you may see. Those whom I love, I reprove and discipline, so be zealous and repent. I love how this passage talks about the contrast between earthly things and eternal things. It really emphasizes the difference there. So let's take what we can find out of this passage and steer things toward application. So, recap from the beginning. Let God control your use of money. I think that's the best way to take this passage and summarize it in 3 ways. Number 1, be strategic with what you have earthly to use it toward heavenly things. Number 2, be faithful with the little that you have so that you'll be given much. And number 3, be owned by God, not by money, because you can't be owned by both. Matthew 6 is a great place to go when talking about the difference between how unimportant earthly stuff is and how important eternal stuff is. Starting in verse 19, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So living in Logan, Spokane, unfortunately, we are pretty familiar with thieves that break in and steal. Like just last winter, I had this bike that I used to ride to school. You've probably seen the orange and blue one. I used to park it over there every day. But I locked it up to a tree behind the house. Out of sight, someone cut the cable, stole. And I was reminded of this verse. Don't store up your treasures on earth where thieves cut your cable and steal your bike. Like my friend Ryan parked his car out there. He had this airsoft gun in the back of it first day of school. Someone goes through, checks the doors to see, oh, this one's unlocked. Oh, there's an expensive airsoft gun in here. Thieves steal. And the point is, thieves cannot steal what you do toward eternal reward. They can't. They can't grab it like I just grab Stilly's phone right now. They can't grab your salvation. They can't grab the investments you put into other people that are eternal things. So I've given a couple applications up here on the board, but how can we be more specific with them? I think the most direct thing, since this is kind of a business economics parable, would be like if you're over a lot of money, don't be dishonest, don't cheat people. But you know, you guys aren't even out of high school yet. I doubt that that's your position. If it is, that's impressive. Obviously, keep that in mind for your future. Again, like you probably at this point in life don't have a job that just pays crazy well that you're prioritizing over time with your family or actually connecting to the body at church. But if that's the case for you or your parents, don't prioritize the excessive wealth. Prioritize eternal things, as all these passages are saying. I think what would be a little more applicable for freshmen, juniors, seniors would be, how do you use your money? Do you excessively buy things? Do you have lots of unnecessary stuff around the house that you never use? Excessively buying things, that applies to consumable things as well, like especially drinks. Did you know that the average American woman spends $2,327 on coffee per year in coffee shops? That is more than the average American driver spends on gas per year. That's kind of gross.
Different form of fuel.
You could take that money, you could buy 3 Costco Gold Star memberships, a discounted ski resort season pass,
Yes.
2 brand new Apple MacBooks, and still have money left over.
Wow.
Now, I want to be clear, I don't think it's wrong to treat yourself by some coffee. It's a certain, like, Jesus' first miracle was tons of wine. Like, there's nothing wrong, there's a time for everything. But if you're spending thousands, if you're focusing on pleasing yourself over giving to the poor who not only don't have coffee but don't have food, I just don't think that's wise. If Jesus was budgeting out his year as a high schooler in 21st century Spokane, do you think he'd put the $1,000 a year toward Frappuccinos for himself? Or toward food for the needy? But Jesus argues for the importance of eternal things, not temporary things. So considering that contrast, what would be a better use? One of those like violently colored Red Bull things from Dutch Bros, like every day for yourself? Or like charity, missionaries, helping people dig wells so they can have clean water? Again, I'm not saying that anytime you look at a coffee bean, that's sin. I just think that, especially in this culture, it's way out of proportion. So I have some reflection questions that I think it'd be good for you to take some time looking over. Just thinking about these things that I talked about, like how do you use your money? Do you use it for God, for eternal things, or for selfish things, for completely unnecessary things? Proverbs 19:17 that I mentioned before, lending, giving to the poor is lending to God, and He will repay you. Do you use your money to give to others, or do you just keep it all for yourself? And then I think the last thing that would be good to think about as I hand these out, just that question on the bottom. And I don't have you share these, just write notes to yourself, just really think through it, pray through it. But the last prompt is, as Jesus said, if you're faithful in little, you'll be faithful in much. So what is the little, like I said, you're probably not, like you're in high school, so you're probably not like having this giant business. But what is the little that you have right now that you can be faithful in? How can you be the most faithful in that, and what can you do to be more faithful? So think through it, pray through it, and in a few minutes I'll wrap things up.